Hi everyone, welcome to my channel So Stylish with Elsie, where I share my sewing tips and techniques on garment sewing. Now for today's video, I wanted to share a technique that I like using to finish my necklines and my armholes on a stretch fabric, giving me a professional finish. I've also previously done a video with a totally different technique when I'm using my overlocker, so I'm going to link that video below in the description box. Be sure to go and have a look at that video. Now, the tip that I'm sharing with you today is actually taken from my new design and sew along for my Schurfer Designs customers, and that is the timeless V-neck top that you can find on the Schurfer Academy South Africa. I'm only going to be showing you where I'm working on the back neckline because of the way that this top is constructed, but you can do the same technique on your full neckline and, like I said, on your armhole. If you look at the photo that I'm sharing now, you can see the finish on both the armhole and the neckline. You've just got to be sure that when you are cutting your strip of fabric, that you are cutting it so that you've got the maximum stretch running with that strip, and go and rather cut it a little bit wider than needed. You can always go and trim off again. I went and I cut my strip, I think it was about 3 centimeters. I can't remember exactly now. But again, the most important part is really to have that maximum stretch on the length of that neckband so that when I am sewing it on, I've got that control and I can pull that fabric, and that way that I'm going to sew it and show you how to sew it, it is really just going to support that neckline. We're now going to finish the back neckline with the neckband that we've cut out. Remember, we've cut it out on the maximum stretch, so I do have a little bit of give. But we don't want to excessively go and pull this neckband when we're sewing around here, because it might just cause puckers on that neck area. Now we also want to make sure that we take the right side of our neckband and we're going to place it on the right side of our back pattern. When I'm also going to be pinning, and I just want to show you this, I don't want to start where my points are meeting. Can you see that? Where I've got the neckline point there and my band. I really don't want that to be matched up, because look what's happening on that area. Remember, we're sewing in 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to actually have a little section there that I don't have the neckband on. So just go and shift the neckline slightly, or that neckband slightly up, and I'm going to pin that in place just to show you. So if we look from this side, can you see I do have a little bit of a point sticking out over there, but that is fine. We're going to start sewing here at the 1 centimeter, and that I can see now I am actually catching the neckband as well as I start sewing. I want you to take note of the placement of my fabric when I'm starting to sew. You'll see that I am not right on the edge, and I'm just going to just lift my presser foot. You'll see that if you look at that area over there, I've come in a little bit more to the front. If I start right on that edge, most of the time with a stretch fabric, it's going to pull it into the stitch plate for you. So I always make sure that I rather start in a little bit. I'm going to do a couple of stitches forward, just about 2, 1, 2, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to reverse stitch to that shoulder line, and that's it. So that is secure. Now as I'm sewing as well, you'll see that I didn't go and pin anything, and that is because I want to just give a slight pull to my fabric. I'm not going to excessively pull it. What I like to do is I put it on my finger, and as it's there, I just push down, and that downward movement with pushing it down just gives it a little bit of a stretch, and that's how I'm going to work. So I'm going to do it with this hand so you can see. So can you see it's over there? I'm holding it. This finger comes, I'm pushing it down, and now as it's there, I'm just holding on to it, and I'm going to sew around the curve. So with the next one again, and you'll see I keep lifting, making sure that my fabric is lining up there. And this is just going to also prevent a bit of gaping when we are working with a stretch fabric. So again, I'm just holding it on my finger. This part is just pushing down a little bit. There we go. And I'm just doing it section by section. Let's just put the machine slightly faster. And again, you can see my fabric is curling, so I do try and keep it flat all the time. Fingers there, and I'm just pushing down a little bit, holding it in place. Now when I get to this section, so you might find that the band that we did cut, which was exactly the neck measurement, might be slightly longer, and that is just because of that pulling that I'm doing. Now if you're working with a woven, you're working with a bias binding or a strip that was cut on the bias, it's also got a little bit of give, but I don't want you to go and pull like I'm doing there. You're just going to make sure everything is smooth on that neckline when you're sewing it. Looking at the neckline now that it's sewn, you're going to see that the neckband is actually pulling up a little bit. You can see it's wanting to curl, and I'm going to turn it this way as well. Just have a look at that. Now that is happening because while I was sewing, I was pulling my neckband. Now this is a technique that I do when I work with stretch fabrics. I always pull a little bit on the neckline and on the armhole area. I don't go and do any fusible interfacing on this area. I prefer doing it with my neckband, stabilizing that neckline. Now, what we're going to do after this now, and I just wanted to show you, can you see how beautifully flat this neckline is lying? I didn't do excessive pulling, so it's not puckering anywhere. Now we're going to go and we're going to trim the seam allowance. I only want 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch of the seam allowance. Now that we've trimmed away the seam allowance to our 6 millimeter or 1/4 of an inch, we are now going to go and we're going to understitch. Now understitching is when we're taking this part of the neckband and we're going to sew it onto the seam allowance. So all I'm going to do, I'm pushing it over onto that seam allowance. Now on the seam allowance side, we are going to go and we are going to sew down this neckband. We are going to go in about 2 millimeters on that edge and just sew all the way around. Now, I'm going to be working still with my 1/4 inch foot. If you do have your edge stitch foot, you can also use that. I just find with my 1/4 inch foot, I also use the side as a guide. So for me, it also helps with guiding. If you are scared that you're not going to sew straight, please go and put your edge stitch foot on. So all we're going to do, we're going to now move this band. And again, I just want to show you, there's the seam allowance. I'm folding it over the seam allowance and I'm sewing it onto that seam allowance. So let's have a look at my neckband. Now it's looking like this. You can see that that understitching that I've done is evenly spaced from that edge. So that's quite neat. There's no stretching of my fabric. Can you see how flat it is on my seam roll, even though I haven't pressed it yet? And again, that is because we were pulling on this neckband when we were sewing it onto that neckline. It just keeps everything in place for us. There's going to be no gaping, no waving of the fabric whatsoever. Now your next step is going to be to go to your ironing board and you are going to press for me. You are going to take this neckband and you are going to now fold it over that seam allowance. So all you're going to do is fold it over and you're going to press it. I'm just going to do a couple of pins or put a couple of pins so you can see what we're going to do. So again, folding it over the seam allowance, we basically enclosing that seam allowance. Let's give it one more pin. So that is basically what we're going to do. We're going to make sure all the way around we're going to do it. And once I've pressed it, then I'm going to go and I'm going to trim this little section that I have over there. And this side as well, you can see because we started slightly outwards. So there I'm also going to go press it down. Once that is pressed, I can go and trim away that excess. So please go ahead now, go press this for me. I'm also going to press my neckband and then we are going to go and do the last stitching for the neckband. Now I've gone and I've pressed this neckband over that seam allowance and I want you to see what it looks like from the right side. So can you see what we have over there? Now we're going to go and turn this to the inside of our neck. So again, as it is there, you can see it's folded over the seam allowance. I'm going to turn it one more time. And then we're going to go and press it again. I've already gone and pressed mine. I want to show it to you from this side as well. from the wrong side of the fabric. It was folded over the seam allowance, and then I'm going to fold it again so it encloses this raw edge that we have. Now you'll also notice, because of the understitching that we've done, it brings a little bit of this fabric from the right side over to the inside. Can you see that little bit of a lip there? And that is what we want. That is going to give us that really neat finish on the inside. We're not going to see any of this band on the outside. I'm just going to turn it to the side. So we're just going to have that nice clean finish. One thing that I do want you to please note, if you are folding this over and you've got excessive fabric still that's going past that stitching line that we have over there, please go trim this band a little bit. I don't want it to be going past that seam allowance. I'm just going to try and force it past, because once it's there and I fold it again, it's going to want to roll up and it's going to give us a little bit of excess fabric right in that fold. So as you can see, mine is just above my stitching line, and that is what we want. So when I go and turn this like that, it's going to look like that. Now I'm just going to give myself a pin here and there just to keep this neckline in place. Now we are going to go and I'm going to sew from the inside of my top, and I'm going to again just do a bit of a edge stitch all the way around so that I am keeping this neckband flat on my top. So now I've placed my fabric under the presser foot. Again, I'm going to use that edge over there as my guide. If you're going to work with your edge stitch foot, remember to move your needle position maybe 1 or 2 positions to the right, so that as this is guiding it, that your needle will be catching this fabric. Now one thing that you're also going to see again, can you see how it wants to lift up there? And that is because our band was stretched a little bit. So I'm going to make sure just on this part over there, I'm keeping it flat, and I'm just going to stretch my neckline ever so slightly when I'm going to sew this. And can you see I'm stretching just this? I'm not stretching the whole neckband. When I'm doing it, I'm actually stretching out on that section over there. And again, on that straight area, I didn't go and pull the neckband at all. It is every time when I'm coming to the curved area that I'm just pulling the neck edge of my neckband a little bit. You can see I'm just giving it a bit of a pull and I'm keeping it flat. I'm not stretching this part of my fabric. So that is what your neck finish now looks like. So you can see that it is finished off very neatly on the inside. If we look at it from the right side, you will see that I've got none of the band actually coming over and showing on this side. You'll see that we've got that even spacing of our stitch over there. Everything is nice and flat. I don't have puckers, so I didn't pull the neckband too much, but I also didn't stretch this part of my fabric, so I don't have waves happening on the neckband as well. Now, once you've done this for me, you are going to do one final press. It's just going to set the stitches for us. It's just going to make sure that everything is lying nice and flat.